Marvelous Cornelius. Hurricane Katrina and the Spirit of New Orleans by Phil Bildner. Illustrated by John Parra. Even if it's called your lot to be a street sweeper, go out and sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Handel and Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, "Here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well." In the quarter there worked a man known in New Orleans as Marvelous Cornelius. "Mornin'," he saluted the silver-haired man with the Times-Picayune tucked under his arm. "Greetings," he waved to the couple with the baby on the balcony. "Ma'am," he nodded to the woman shaking rugs out of her front window. And when his truck rounded the turn, "My young'uns," he called to the kids crowded in the corner. "Marvelous Cornelius," they cheered. "Marvelous Cornelius." At each home, Cornelius sashayed to the curb and shimmied to the hopper. Unloading the garbage, not a single praline wrapper ever stayed on the streets. And those spotless streets, oh, how they sparkled. "Woo, woo, 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 woo," he called to his driver when it was time to stop. "Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat," he strummed to the side when it was time to move. "Hooty-hoo, hooty-hoo," his favorite call of all, "showtime." Cornelius front flipped to the curb and flung the bags over his head, behind his back, between his legs, into the truck. He lined bags along the curb and then launched them. Bag after bag after bag after bag. They landed in a perfect pyramid inside the hopper's metal mouth. Bang! He clapped the covers like cymbals and twirled the tins like tops, whizzing and spinning back and forth across the street. And just like those twisting tops, Cornelius danced too, tangoing up Toulouse, psalming down St. Peter, rumbering up Royale, cha-chaing down Charter, and everyone danced along. The old ladies whistled and whirled, the old men hooted and hollered, the barbers, bead twirlers, and beignet makers bounded behind the one-man parade. But then one day, the storm came. The great city filled with water. People and pets, parks and playgrounds washed away. Schools and shops, streets and streetcars washed away. Far too long, water, water everywhere, a gumbo of mush and mud. When those waters finally fell away, Cornelius looked out at the mountains of ruins, some as high as the steeple atop St. Louis Cathedral. "It would take thousands of me to clean this," he wept. "Millions." Cornelius rose, he dried his eyes, for his spirit and will were waterproof. And just like he did every morning, he emptied the garbage into his hopper. And the kids who crowded the corner, they pitched in too. So did the silver-haired man, the couple from the balcony, the woman with the rugs, the old ladies and old men, the barbers, bead twirlers, and beignet bakers. Others too, from Brooklyn and Boise, Baltimore and Bakersfield, Syracuse, Seattle, Santa Fe, San Antonio. They streamed to this crescent city. Thousands, millions, a flood of humanity. "Hooty-hoo," Marvelous Cornelius cheered, "hooty-hoo." And the great city rose again. Marvelous Cornelius, he passed on, but as for his spirit, that's part of New Orleans forever after. In the years following Hurricane Katrina, I visited New Orleans many times to help in the cleanup and recovery. Often, I chaperoned groups of teen volunteers. When I did, the trips always evolved into incredibly uplifting and life-affirming experiences. They always became about the people. One person I met was Katie Reckdahl, a reporter from the Times-Picayune. While Katrina was lashing the Gulf Coast in August of 2005, Katie was giving birth to her son Hector at Toro Infirmary in New Orleans' Garden District. After meeting Katie, I read some of her archived articles, including one titled Talkin' Trash. It was a feature about Cornelius Washington, a sanitation worker in the French Quarter who sang, danced, and performed tricks. A wizard of trash cans. I had to learn about him. Sadly, Cornelius passed away not long after Hurricane Katrina. But with Katie's help, I located his mother, Miss Mary Wiley. Miss Mary still lived in the tiny town of Waterproof, Louisiana, where she'd raised Cornelius. Miss Mary and I spoke on the phone several times. She sent me a letter too, a handwritten letter filled with memories of Cornelius. Whenever I read it, it was as if Cornelius I'd seen in the video clips, the bald-headed man with the big hoop earring and the New Orleans drawl, was reading to me. Cornelius' story has the flavor of folk tales, folk heroes like John Henry, and by incorporating repetition, alliteration, and exaggeration, I've tried to honor those qualities in the telling. Still, it must be said that while Cornelius was certainly a showman, he may not have twirled the lids like tops or clapped them like cymbals. He had signals and calls, but they weren't exact ones described here. The garbage bags he threw into his hopper probably didn't land in perfect pyramids, nor did the destruction following Katrina rise as high as the steeple atop St. Louis Cathedral. And though he was celebrated and beloved in his neighborhood, he was not called Marvelous Cornelius. But he deserves to be. On so many levels, Cornelius symbolizes what the city of New Orleans is all about. The energy, the spirit, the magic, the people. That's what brought all the volunteers to the Crescent City, and inside each one was a little bit of Marvelous Cornelius.